So with that, if somebody would, those people who have a prayer book, if somebody would like to volunteer to read verse 27. We're in the story of Isaac, and the twins have now grown up a little bit. Okay, so if somebody would like to, thank you, David.
Okay, I'm going to start with verse 27 on
Yes.
chapter 25. And the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field, and Jacob was a quiet man, dwelling in tents. Now Isaac loved Esau, because he did eat of his venison, and Rebekah loved Jacob. And Jacob sawed pottage, and Esau came in from the field, and he was faint. And Esau said to Jacob, let me swallow, I pray thee, some of this red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom. And Jacob said, sell me first thy birthright. And Esau said, behold, I am at the point to die. And what profit shall the birthright do to me? And Jacob said, swear to me first. Not he swore to that unto him, and he sold his birthright unto Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and pottage of lentils, and he did eat and drink, and rose up and went his way. So Esau despised his birthright.
Okay, there's a lot in this portion of this series of verses. First, any comments about Esau? Yes, Gail.
I wish the rabbi was here and or Steve, because they say that Esau was a hunter. Now, hunting is not a Jewish, recreational thing that's approved of particularly. So I'm a little interested in the background on that, but they're not here, so I don't know what to say. But hunting is not approved of particularly. It's not a big Jewish sport.
Well, yeah, that's true.
It's not a kosher way to kill an animal, to hunt.
Right. Pastor Bruce.
I realize that we are just starting this section. The Torah certainly implies a preference for Jacob's mild-mannered personality to Esau's roughness. This is not noted. This is not the first time this is happening here, and nor will it be the last. But are some of you familiar with the Sarna quotes from the commentary? Sarna, S-A-R-N-A.
No, not
okay. Well, I'm going to quote from it anyway. Here we go.
Okay. Good.
Near Eastern art often portrays kings and nobles in pursuit of game, but no Israelite or Judean king or hero is ever mentioned as engaging in this sport. Right. That's what he says. And that's what Gail was saying.
Right.
That it doesn't seem to be, something that is noted in the Bible at all.
Right. No, right.
I mean, as far as a sport.
Right.
As a specific thing for sacrificial, for sin and everything else, yes, but not as sport.
Yeah, but hunting is not the same as doing a sacrifice.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. And so in that case, I think that, you don't really see this, and what's so different is that these guys are so different from each other, but oftentimes, as we know, if you have twins, even if you have, all of our children are different. Even twins are different from each other. They're not going to be exactly the same personalities or have the same exact interests. And I don't know if any of you are products of twins or know twins very well, but I grew up with several sets of twins, and they are different. They have a lot of similarities, but they're different. And so one who likes to hunt and one who likes to cook. Apparently that's their...
Well, the Hebrew phrase "ever min hachai" singles out the human race from other predatory animals. Jews had permission to eat meat, but not to be predators. In other words, you're not supposed to act like a predator. So hunting, that's why hunting is a no-no.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So, but I wish the rabbi was here because I know he could expound.
Sure. Yes, Suzanne.
Yeah, but we got to remember that this is before the dietary laws have been given. So
It's a Noahic law. It's a Noahic law. It's one of the Noahic laws. Not to be cruel to animals.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with Sinai.
All right. Yes, Michael.
Yeah, I have to talk in reference to what Gail originally said, that Jews are not hunters, and that goes really beyond hunting for sport. You know, a Jew is not really known to pick up a rifle and go hunting, and that's not the Jews hunting and guns. It's not a mix. It's just not a mix. And I'll even go further than that and say, I don't think Jews really believe in self-defense, because I see so many things happening and they don't want to take the initiative to pick up a gun and to keep it as self-defense. I don't see it. And I think that the time has come that Jews defend themselves if and when necessary, only if and when necessary.
How can you see
Okay,
that?
well, we're going off on a tangent. We're going off on some tangents that, really do not apply to
Right.
the Parsha. I'd like to bring
Yeah,
it.
I apologize for that, but
No. It's
I
okay.
couldn't help it. I just could not help it.
It's okay. But I want to just try for us to remain focused here. One of the things that that is mentioned here, besides being a skillful hunter, Esau is also described as a man of the outdoors. And then the phrase that is followed by the phrase, but Jacob was a mild man who stayed in camp. So what is being implied here? Because there's a lot of midrash that has come down through the ages with regard to this particular phrase. What does in your mind, what do you think that this phrase indicates about the character of Jacob?
What? The bonds. That's my new wife.
Anyone? Okay, but let me get something started here. When somebody stays at home, he has become a chef, if you will. He's going to prepare food, but at that time, it was not uncommon for men to do this. Okay? So is that what they're trying to get after, that he was just he did chores that were expected of a man at that time? Yes, yes, Chris.
I think he was a learned man, that he was learning and studying a little more into the responsibility that he was born into it. More of a book person, more of a sage, I would say. Then Esau was more concerned of the things of the field, more growing the harvest, or not necessarily hunter, but outdoor person.
Okay. When you stay at home, this is a great time to think about what we've all been doing during this time period. and maybe the virus has had some benefits after all for our society. What have we been doing? Those of you who have been reading the Schmooze newsletter that Ricky puts out, people have been doing quite a bit. But, you know, are they talking about attending sports activities, gym activities, or what kind of activities are they telling us that they're doing? Yes, Pastor Bruce.
Well, I haven't read the Schmooze news, but maybe I could get on the mailing list, Rick.
Bruce, chat with me. Give me your email. There's been
I
three
will later.
issues.
I will later.
Yeah.
But
Then-
you know, exchange. There's a lot of
I'll send you all
recipes.
3 issues.
There's a lot of recipe exchanges going on right now.
Yes, there are.
And I don't know if that's in Schmooze News, but that's in a lot of different places. Facebook,
No, but that is
lots
true.
of places.
Yes. Yes, Chris.
Well, I haven't received any recipes, but I'm not a cook either. So, but I am getting into a lot of other stuff that is something that applies to me, like music, like art. So I agree with Pastor Bruce. We're getting a lot of the stuff that we are interested in, you know, more so than everybody's stuff.
Okay. You know, I know that Sue and I have been doing an awful lot of reading.
That's
We've
true.
been online taking classes. We've been watching some very good quality programming on PBS and other stations. Normally our lives are busier during the week, and we normally don't have a chance to do all of these things. People, and so what I gathered from reading the Schmooze is that people are doing a lot of learning. They're doing a lot of reading. As Chris pointed out, the interest in the arts has been coming forth. Did anyone? It was on late last night, but. One of the authors, and I have to, my head is not on straight because we've stayed up late watching this. One of the commentaries that he was making about our education system is that we have abandoned humanities. And this was from a lecture he gave in 2017. And he predicted that just 3 years ago, he says, if we had a worldwide catastrophe such as a plague, people would become housebound, and the need for reading and writing would come to bear, which is interesting, but it's been abandoned in the schools. Most children today do not know how to write. Most children do not read.
That's true.
Homes no longer have libraries. Young families do not have libraries. It's all on an electronic device. And as you go down a whole bunch of categories, I'm strong in science and math, and I always talk about it. We rank 47th out of 50 countries in science. Countries in Africa and South America rank better than we do. Okay, so I don't care what anyone says about the education system. We do know from personal experience, those of you who have been in business may have had to train people how to speak on a telephone.
Right.
Okay, I mean, or to make cash at a cash register when the electricity goes out.
Right.
Because everything is done by a picture that shows up on the computer. On the other side of that cash register, it's really a modified computer, and it just lists the items and with a picture, and the person pushes the button, and the computer is doing all the calculating. So we have to be, so when we think about somebody who is staying at home now, and now many people are expanding their education at the cost of physical activity.
Right.
Not everybody has had a chance to go out. So I wanted to open up that discussion about the difference between people who are heavy in sports versus people who are readers and are interested in obtaining an education. Yes, Michael, you've had your hand up for some time.
That's okay. Yeah, I don't know if this counts. So I don't want to go. I don't want to go far afield at all. So I'm just gonna. If it doesn't work, just tell me. What I've been doing personally at home is I've been reaching out and calling all the friends that I know and people that I know, and encouraging them, just encouraging them in different ways, in their based on their possibly their personality, and what they do, and people I know around the United States. I have a lot of friends in different parts of the country, and the other thing that I do is that I'm now using Facebook. I've been on Facebook for 5, 6 years, but I never liked it. I just didn't like it. But now I found a very good use for it because I post my music on. That's a way to get my music out. So
yes, that's constructive, very constructive.
Would you write about that for the schmooze? Because we haven't heard from you, and that was very interesting.
Yeah.
What was interesting?
Let Ricky know about that so she can put it in the Schmooze newsletter.
It's a schmooze news. A schmooze.
Yes.
Schmooze. Okay, we got a new name.
Larry, you've had your hand up.
I hope my computer holds out and you can hear me. But what I'd like to write about is, as a Jew, I strongly believe in Tikkun Olam. We have the Social Action Committee chaired by Gary Melton, who is phenomenal. I have been writing letters to our 2 senators, our representative, our governor. I had a letter published in the Arizona Daily Star, and I'm also buying a lot of postage stamps.
Larry, you're breaking up. Larry, you're breaking up.
Hello?
Larry, you're breaking up, and we missed half of what you were saying.
I think he's done.
Yeah, I'll try again. I will write this all out, but I said, do not forget Tikkun Olam and writing letters to. I'm losing me again.
Yeah, we're losing you again.
We lost you again.
Be political is what he's saying.
Okay. Okay.
Right to the politicians.
Okay. But anyway,
I'll interpret.
So these are things that people have been doing. Ricky has been with this newsletter. She's been contributing. Yes, Ricky.
Well, also, until the last few years, I was never very political, but boy, have I become political. And I've always thought about, well, will I ever go to one of those protests? Now, there is one today at 11 o'clock in front of the post office to support them here in Green Valley, but obviously we're here, so we're not there. But for the first time, I actually wrote letters, and I'm a good writer, very specific, very organized letters to the Board of Governors of the Postal Service. And unfortunately, it was before I found out that they were all appointed by Trump, but that's another story. Anyway, so I've gotten the activist in me aroused. Don't mess with my post office. You can mess with a lot of things in my life, but don't mess with that.
Okay.
The other things I've been doing is I've been cooking, And Chris can verify the very first conversation we had after COVID. Remember I was describing my Italian spinach? You know, so just talking recipes. But I've been doing a lot of cooking and rereading. I'm rereading Shalom Aleichem now, all the little short stories that are just so much fun and just little tidbits so that they're not big projects. So that's what I've been doing, kind of.
Okay, Gail.
Being indoors.
Hey, if you want to support the post office, when your mailman comes around with your mail, tell him you're with him.
I don't see.
Yeah.
I don't see our mailman because he goes to the office, but I did see some mail trucks, and I stopped and said, "Hey guys, how's it going?" You know, and made a little conversation. I'm with you. You know, so I actually stopped when there was a mailman getting out of his truck.
So if I could summarize all of this, we've been doing little acts of kindness.
Mm-hmm.
We've been doing things that we're supposed to do. Some of them may be political, but overall, it's thinking about humanity. So when we're at home, one of the things that may have been going on in our homes and our own minds may have also been going on in Jacob's mind, being more of a homebody. I don't know, but that's the Midrash. He studied, he understood things better, and so an education allowed him to be a little wiser and to be able to get to the point where his brother now comes in famished. He's been outdoors a long day, and when we do that, we have an option. We can talk about how the day has been, what his accomplishments might have been, or maybe he wasn't able to do much hunting that day. Maybe the game was not available, or he couldn't find it. But he was thinking of himself. He comes out and he says, "Oh my goodness, I am so famished. I am so faint. Okay, feed me." And so let's talk a little bit more about the character of Esau and the character of Isaac, because now you're seeing a tremendous difference between the characters of both men. Yes, Gail.
Does anybody find Jacob a little devious? I do. I don't think he's all
mama's boy.
I don't think this is a matter of all good and all bad on either side. I think it's a mix. They're people, you know, very human.
Okay, agree. First, Pastor Bruce, Chris, then Suzanne.
You know, I think that Jacob is kind of viewed often as an unscrupulous kind of person, Gail. I think he's viewed that way. But he really didn't trick his brother. He saw an opening, tried to strike a deal. Esau willingly complied with it. Nobody twisted his arm to do anything about that, really. I mean, when you look at the text, it's not like it's arm twisting or bending or anything. And when you think about it, in any kind of given situation, if there was a sibling, you know, the oldest gets this, the next one gets this kind of a scenario anywhere in life, you could take a cook and a meal, or you could take some prized possession that the older one doesn't care about in the least, but the second one really does, and they have an exchange program. I mean, it seems as if Jacob cares about this, and Esau doesn't care about this. And it comes down to character, about caring what's important to you, even if it's just at the moment, which, again, Esau gets blamed quite frequently for being impulsive. But I just think when you look at this, it's about values. It's about what you value. It's about how you go about doing things. And I just don't think that Jacob was as tricky as some people think. And I think that he saw it as a time to think about what he really desired.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Esau took what he wanted at the moment and exchanged it, and he agreed. And then when you go on to the next verse, we're going to figure all this out, actually.
Right. No, but it's good to discuss it at this point. Okay, first Grace, then Suzanne, first Chris, then Suzanne, then Grace, and then Gail.
Well, my comment here, I think it comes from Rachel. I think she had a big input into the kids' lives. She was definitely the mother who will put the input into the children. You are the one that raises the kids, so there was a preference in there
Mm-hmm.
from the beginning. And I think that she must have been feeding also Jacob with some ways of managing the situation, because she wanted Jacob to be the first one to receive the blessing. And we can see that through the future readings.
Right.
But I think as a mother, if you are partial to a kid, it will definitely, that was closer to mama, fixing the meals, learning the house things, being close to daddy. Well, the other one, go hunt, go do something, go take care of yourself. I feel that somewhere in there, Rachel was also in a input into that.
Well, I'm going to underscore what you said. If we go back to the Akedah, following that, Isaac, his life becomes very passive, and it's understandable. And we also commented about the fact that it also mentions later on that Rebecca's he likes Rebecca, what he sees in Rebecca, because she reminds him of his mother. And so, so you can understand his behavior.
Yeah.
It's there are a lot of jokes about guys who get married and like that. They're really trying to marry their mother. But who knows? But and then after that, you find that you really have married someone else.
You married someone else's mother.
But it is really it really is understandable, and I think that what we're seeing here is, and here I wish Helene were here because of her knowledge of psychology. She would be able to express this better than I can, and you can see the difference. And Isaac wants to also wants to be more masculine, and he is going to favor someone who is going to have what at that time was considered very strong masculine characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to Jacob, he is if some of the sages have said that he was a book learner, and if that was the case, he may have known that at that time it was considered correct behavior for people to try to barter with using a birthright as a bartering tool in exchange for something else.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very important to remember that the firstborn son had a double share of everything. He not only had the physical wealth, but also the spiritual responsibilities.
Right.
Okay, and some of that has continued to this very day.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to point all those out in the discussion. I usually save it to the end, but you guys stimulated something. I just had it blurted out. Suzanne, I'm sorry I took up your time.
It just struck me odd that, we're reading along and all of a sudden Jacob says, sell me your birthright. I mean, like, where did that come from? Maybe it came from his mother. I don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah, I know. It just seems so odd.
Well, maybe Rebecca thought that Jacob was better suited. I'm just talking off the top of my head. Was Jacob being more educated and understanding of religious tradition at that time? Maybe that he was better suited to carry on everything. I do not know the right answer. Again, this is where some of the rabbis would be helpful. Grace, you had your hand up before.
I'm sorry, I was talking to my dog, so I use sign language. And sorry about that.
Okay.
Thank you, though. Thank you.
That was cute. Okay, Ricky and Gail. I forget who is first, but go ahead, Ricky and Gail. I'll let you battle it out.
Oh, go ahead, Gail.
Oh, I was just going to say, bottom line, it's another dysfunctional family. That's what makes the Torah so interesting. We don't have perfect people. Jacob is not perfect, and neither is Esau. This is the real lesson of Torah. Is that look at imperfect people.
It's not virtual, it's reality.
Yep.
This is how people think and act, and sometimes they will do something that is good and sometimes not so good.
Yeah.
So that's why I think we get here. Ricky and then Ruth Ann.
Okay, a couple of things. First, I sort of muttered earlier, Jacob's a mama's boy, and that, we've sort of talked around that. But the thing here, Esau, at different translations, are at the point of death, or let's see. Yeah, well, anyway, for I will surely die. Look, I am going to die. And in our culture, anything for life is, you just do anything to save a life. Even on Shabbat, you can break every rule if it's to save a life. So if we really want to get kooky on this, Esau is saying, I'm going to die. So Jacob says, oh, okay, I'll save your life. I'll give you this. But of course, you got to give me that. So that's, there's a barter here also. But nobody seems to ever look at that point, that Jacob is sort of officially saving Esau's life by feeding him.
Okay. You could also say that Esau is an actor.
Because
He
very melodramatic.
exaggerates. He emotes. That's right.
That's like my ex-father-in-law. Oh.
So maybe that too is a factor. I don't know. So anyway, Ruth Ann, you were going to say something.
Okay. Well, real quick. First of all, David was first. So if you want to go first, and then I'll go.
All right.
Okay, David.
Okay. I think this is a very important discussion we're having because I think what this part of the Torah is trying to get us to do is to discuss the question of what are Jewish values. I mean, we've talked that Jewish values do not include hunting, and one person said they do not include even defending ourselves, and yet Israel has one of the strongest armies in the world right now. I think we're trying to decide just what Jewish values are, and they are different among different people. But the other point I wanted to make comes from something that I missed before I joined this group, and that is the idea of learning and how we learn different things and the commandment to learn. And I go back to briefly to Genesis chapter 15, verse 5. And he said, "Look now towards heaven and count the stars, if thou be able to count them. And he said unto him, so shall thy seed be." I wanted to make the point that this verse may be one of the first, well, it certainly is one of the first instructions to get interested in science, to study about what there is to learn. Counting the stars doesn't just mean counting them, it means studying them. And so I wanted to make that point as well. But here we are really trying to figure out what Jewish values are. And I think that is the key to this particular chapter right now. And I think we're doing it pretty well.
Thank you, David. Those of you who don't know David, he knows the night sky so well every single day, well, almost every single day, that David can be outdoors at night. He is there studying the stars. And someday I would love to hear him give us a little dissertation on studying the stars and why it's important to understand what's going on up there. And then it's sort of very humbling, another Jewish experience. So thank you, David. Michael, you've had your hand up. I'm sorry, Michael, just one second. Ruth Ann, and then Michael.
Two things. First of all, I got a text from Rabbi Roman. He will not be joining us this morning because he can't find a secure Wi-Fi location. His daughter, Karen, in New York, has been Zoom bombed multiple times. And so I think he's very leery about using the public Wi-Fi, and I thank him for that because we've been trying our best to keep our Zoom, everything secure. But second, I wonder with Esau, if he kind of felt the weight of the world on his shoulders, because I can definitely understand that right now after last night's fiasco. You know, he's an outdoors person. He sees all the administrative duties that's going to go with the birthright that he's going to inherit, and he probably does not want that life, but he has no way of getting around it. And then when Jacob gives him that out, so why not? Hey, Jacob wants to take it on. I can go back out to the field. So it may be, I'll look at it as a win-win in his mind. I don't know. But if somebody wants to take over the technical stuff at the temple, they certainly can.
Okay. Well, let's go on. Let's talk a little. Yes, Michael. I apologize. I forgot. Yes, Michael. My fault.
I just want to respond because David Levy, I need to respond to him, please. I think I heard you say that Israel has one of the strongest armies in the world. I think that's what he said.
Number 3.
And I'll just say this, and I would love to, I'm not going to carry on a discussion here, but I would just tell him that they won't use it. And if I had the time, I would explain to him why and how I come to that conclusion. but I just wanted to respond to that one comment. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Well, now we go on, and in this paragraph, there's been a lot of emphasis on the color red. And the one before that, that Esau is red hair, it has red hair and a ruddy skin. And also here he prefers that, if you will, red stuff, the lentil stew that has been being cooked. And Edom, or Edom, is red. Okay? And so let's talk a little bit about that. Yes, Pastor Bruce.
Just a quick little thing. Twice now I've been to Jordan as well as Israel, and the Edomite kingdom, of course, is in Jordan, in the land of Jordan. And I don't know if any of you have been to Petra, but it's all red.
Yes, it's Red Rock country.
It's all red rock country, kind of like Red Rocks, Arizona, or going over to Texas Canyon, or any of that stuff. It's very, very similar. Our topography and their topography is similar, certainly. But I just think, as you're thinking about Edomite and the color red, what else comes from, what do we all have that's red?
Blood.
It doesn't matter whether we're, thank you, Ricky.
Yes.
Just answered my question. But the bottom line is, as humanity, we all have a substance that doesn't change whether we're Jewish or Gentile, red, black, yellow, or white, whatever we are, whoever we are, it doesn't change. We all have the same color inside. And I think that I don't know if that's where you're going with this, but I just think that in the midst of this, that's something we need to remember.
Good point.
That's a remembering point in the middle of this. I'm not quite sure why there's such an emphasis on it. I can't really answer the red emphasis question. I just know that being where I was in the Holy Land and seeing the Edomite kingdom and seeing the red and thinking about Esau and the red and the soup being red, and I'm not sure if there's a real connection with all these red emphases in these paragraphs. There should be, and I don't really know what it is, but I just know that as human beings, as we think about Jewish law and some of the things that David was bringing out, that we all bleed the same color. And we all need to remember that. And if we can just start there, there'd be less problems in the world.
Agree, but as a hunter, he saw a lot of red blood.
He did.
And historically, though, what has the concept of red symbolized historically? Historically, if we fast forward a couple of thousand years, red is a symbol of the Roman Empire, which is going to also have negative effects on the Jews of that time. Okay.
It was kind of a prostitutionary thing as well, color, for a while. Maybe not now, but it was.
Okay. So it was not a favorable thing. A word about the Edomites. They were involved in spice trade, but also iron. The red soil and the red rock is rich in iron. But they did not get a lot of their iron from the rock. It is believed they got it from, David, I know you're listening keenly here, that they got it from meteorites. So
The
I'm going
iron
to,
and meteorites. That's quite possible, Martin. Yes.
and that, no, no, as we read in the different commentaries, one of the, if you go into the geography of the area, even quartz in that area will have a reddish tint to it. Okay, the inclusion because of the iron content. We see that in Red Rock country. Okay, but also that a lot of the earliest iron trade was in meteorites because they hadn't developed ways of smelting that ore, if you will, to extract the iron. That has to come later. They have to be able to have fires that are hot enough to be able to do that. So it still has a way to go, but it's just an interesting aside.
And at this point, I can display a meteorite for all to see. This is my wedding ring, and this is a Gibeon meteorite. And I've had it, or one like it, ever since Wendy and I got married, almost a quarter century ago.
Yeah, the nickel iron, that's right. The nickel iron meteorites, that's right. So those of you who have seen part of my rock collection know that I have several different meteorites, a little specimen of each type of meteorite rather than one gigantic meteorite. And that just takes us too far astray. But I just thought it was interesting to bring that into the discussion about the Edomites. But the color red in Jewish history is associated with a bunch of things. It's also associated with the Spanish Inquisition, all things negative to Judaism. Okay, so just...
Thus a blue and white flag.
Very good.
And the big red cross of the Knights Templar was also red. That was their symbol.
Mm-hmm.
And the Red Cross. How did we forget that?
Well, those are different uses for the color red, but at that time, historically, that's what it's been interpreted as. So we have spoken about red, and the spurning of the birthright, and any other comments about that?
Well, that is the answer to a lot of the questions of which we've been talking about, is that last statement there. Certainly, I think, anyway. Thus did Esau spurn the birthright.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so it becomes it's just several different discussions that we could have based on what was there.
He didn't carry any regret out the door with him.
That's right. No, this is something that he just did not care enough.
I mean, he just didn't.
That. So his true colors, he has exhibited his true colors at this point. So so just like in other stories, if somebody would like to begin 26:1, just like in other stories, there was a famine in the land. So if somebody would like to read, or if there's a comment.
There was a famine in the land, aside from the previous famine that had occurred in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, in Gerar. The Lord had prepared him and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Stay in the land which I point out to you. Reside in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. I will assign all these lands to you and to your heirs, fulfilling the oath that I swore to your father Abraham. I will make your heirs as numerous as the stars of heaven, and assign to their heirs all these lands, so that all the nations of the earth shall bless themselves by your heirs, inasmuch as Abraham obeyed me and kept my charge, my commandments, my laws, and my teachings."
This becomes interesting now.
Yeah.
There are several different things going on at one time. Any comments?
Well, the land is certainly Israel. that we're talking about.
Will eventually become.
Yeah,
Nazareth,
yes,
right.
yes. But I think that it's interesting. It does point back, obviously, to Genesis 12 as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, we had discussed Abimelech, king of the Philistines, before. Does that ring a bell? This is about a month ago now. And because of one phrase in here, they feel that it is the same Abimelech that was living in the time of Abraham.
That's in Genesis 20, I think, 14 through 18.
Okay, thank you. And so, this becomes, this will herald an interesting discussion. But what does God, what is God saying here to Isaac? Okay, not only has he, Isaac done some things that relate to our discussion, that he understood something about spirituality and was educated, but obviously now God is speaking to Isaac. Yes, Chris.
You're muted, Chris.
Chris, you're muted.
You're still muted.
Okay, here I am. Okay, what I believe he's saying clearly is trust me. I got you.
Mm-hmm.
I will provide for you. I will take care of everything. Just do as I say.
And as David was saying before about the stars in heaven, your descendants will be as numerous as the stars in heaven. Does that sound familiar? Have we heard that before?
Of course, with
Yeah.
Abraham.
With Abraham, yes.
Yeah.
And David, your hand is up.
Actually, it's Wendy's.
Actually, it's me. We cannot have our microphones on at the same time.
Oh,
When I was a little girl, well, not little, but young, in Hebrew school, when that line came up about the stars in the heavens and the sands of the earth, the way it was explained to us, it's one of the few things that stuck in my little brain, was that no matter what happens to the Jews, no matter how well they're doing or no matter how badly they are being trodden upon, they will always be there. We will always be on earth. We'll never be eradicated, so to speak. And that's the way I've come to believe that phrase means.
it's a very good interpretation.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments about this? Has anyone ever been able to count all of the stars?
Sure. Many times. Many times, yeah.
Attempts have been made. Attempts have been made. Has anyone ever been able to count all of the grains of sand?
Mm-mm.
So the people, whoever said this, if it was stated by God or people who wrote it, they understood something here that was very profound. Okay, they would speak. It's the concept of infinity.
Right. That's a perfect word for it.
Okay, so we're talking about infinity in number, but it's also infinity in terms of time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a different way of looking at it. Yes, Michael.
Those stars represent all the Jews that were killed or murdered in the Holocaust. They're right there looking down on us.
Interesting interpretation, but very, very good. Very good. Yes, in some cultures, actually, they said that the stars represented all of the previous generations. That has been said in the past as well. So yes, but let's digress a little bit. Yes, Chris first.
Yes, I like the last comment on this particular chapter, well, verse, what it says, inasmuch as Abraham obeyed me and kept my charge, my commandments, my laws, and my teachings, and it was, I will take care of you, but you have to keep your part. You have to obey me. I keep my commandments and keep my teachings. And that is a kind of a covenant, and that God is making with Isaac, and it has the conditions that God has always had for all of us in order to be blessed.
Very, very good point. Very good point. Before I recognize Ricky, did someone else have their hand up?
Well, I did, and it's very similar to what Chris was just saying. I was really looking, this is a faith thing. It's not that he didn't believe in God already or didn't believe that God existed already. It's a faith. It's really all about the faith to do what God promises, entering into something that God is already doing. There's a phrase that I'm trying to remember the name of the person. Maybe Susan could help me remember, but there was a study that I guess it was Henry Blackaby did a study, and he said, oftentimes we always need to enter into what God is already doing in the situation. And I think that when you think about God going before and being with and running behind, then you can see that God is showing him the path, and Isaac's going to be entering into what God is showing him in the path, as Abraham did. It's already there. The path is laid out. God has laid out the path, and then you follow into the path so that you can be doing exactly and being exactly where you're supposed to be at the right time. And I think that sometimes in our lives in the 21st century, we lack that. We lack that idea. But I think it's still a good idea. I think it's a God idea. I don't think it's something that we can really ignore even today. But I think that's what's happening here. I'm done.
Very good point. Yes, Ricky.
Yeah, I was going to pick up on that because this is, yes, you were talking about how it looks forward, but in as much as Abraham obeyed me, it's looking back. Mm-hmm. And as I talked about our temple's historian, now we're here, but we were there, we got here, and we're going there. And it's a continuous line. So I pick up, that's, what Bruce was saying, that this is now, but now is between then and there, between his, yesterday and tomorrow. So that's,
good point.
It reflects back to the history also, is what my point is. Yeah.
So we now know that not only did Rebecca favor Jacob and favor Abraham and Isaac's teachings, okay, but now we're being reminded that it's all God-given. It's prescribed. It is also prescribed by God, as you say. He's setting the path, and now it's going to be up to Isaac to fulfill that part of the prophecy, if you will, set down from Abraham. So now, if somebody would like to to continue reading with verse 6, unless somebody has another comment. Okay, verse 6, someone. I know Chris and Gail, yeah, you have your books out.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Before we do, Suzanne had a comment.
No, not a comment. I can read.
Oh, okay. Okay, go ahead.
And Isaac dwelt in Gerar, and the and the men of the place asked him of his wife, and he. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah. I thought I switched to 30. 20, chapter 20. Okay, and he said, "She is my sister," for he feared to say, "She is my wife," lest said he that the men of the place should kill me for Rebekah, because she was fair to look upon. And it came to pass, when he had been there a long time, that Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out a window and saw, and behold, Isaac was sporting with Rebekah his wife. And Abimelech called Isaac and said, "Behold, of a surety she is thy wife, and how said thou, she is my sister?" And Isaac said unto him, "Because I said, lest I die for her." And Abimelech said, "What is this thou hast done unto us? One of the people might lightly have leaned with thy wife, and thou should have brought guiltness upon us." And Abimelech charged all his people, saying, "He that touches this man or his wife shall surely be put to death."
Okay. So does this remind us of something?
Yeah, Abraham.
Abraham and
right.
Sarah, for sure.
It's almost verbatim. It's
Mhm.
almost verbatim. Is any other comments?
Yeah, I have a
Yes.
question.
Okay,
And
Ricky.
in both of these stories, okay, Abimelech is, okay, if Rebecca is the sister, why does that change her status with Abimelech versus if she is his wife? If let's see, okay, if she's a wife, it says one of my people might have lain with your wife. So if it's a wife, then it's one thing, but if it was a sister, it's another. I don't understand that whole confusion. You can lay with somebody's sister, but not with his wife.
Right.
You know, adulteress and all that, or whatever you want to call it, which we haven't gotten adultery in here yet. But, you know, what's the big deal here? I mean, I just don't get it.
Well, we had the same discussion when we discussed this under Abraham. Does anyone remember what we said?
Well, he was being very selfish in that he was protecting his own life.
Well, that was one interpretation, but what else did we discuss? That was one interpretation. Yes.
They were in fact brother and sister. That was true with Sarah and Abraham. But it's not so with Rebecca and Isaac.
That's a difference. Yes. Yes. And so,
how would the difference between it being his wife or his sister affect his life? You know, like, I was afraid if you thought it was my wife, you would, you know, I would die. But now that if you know it's my sister, it's okay. I don't.
So what did we say back then about some of the social behavior of the time? Yes, Pastor Bruce.
Well, I think when you go back and look at some of these things, that the social behavior at the time is the stranger coming into a strange place. There could be a way to treat those people decently, you know, and to respect them. But in some places, they often killed, like they would be killing Isaac to get his wife. And so the saying about sister, but I mean, it's just one of those things it was kind of maybe possibly a common thing back then, that as strangers come through and they see somebody they want, they kill the husband. But in this case, they wouldn't kill the brother. I mean, it's just one of those
Yeah.
things that maybe was kind of a unwritten social rule for Near Eastern societies at the time or something.
A question. What was the original concept of a dowry? Yes, Suzanne.
I'm not sure, but wasn't it the idea of paying the father so that if something happens to the husband, that there'll be money to take care of the wife?
Actually, it was purchase of the daughter.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, but was it purchase of the daughter or was it money to be kept?
A wife at that time, she was property. She was not. And that still goes on today in some cultures.
Right.
Okay, the woman was considered property at that point.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference then between a wife and a sister?
He wouldn't have to pay for it. He wouldn't have to pay for the sister any dowry because it wasn't his wife. It was his property, but it's not
She
the
has a
same
higher
as
status. Yeah.
purchasing a wife.
And what he says is what she can do,
Mm-hmm.
right? As the sister.
In other words, talk to my father. He's the one you have to pay the money to.
Think back to the experience with Laban.
Mm-hmm. Right, that's true.
There's a huge dowry that is paid for Rebecca. Okay, but Laban has to agree to that. So yeah, there's some. So this is the time period. Now we do things a little differently today. Well, I would say a lot differently today, but it is. But that was the whole concept of life back then, and so this is it's a very important. A very important thing in the minds of people as to social behavior at that time. Yes, Pastor Bruce.
Well, and just I think the opposite when you look at the way Philistines look at things, and then you look at the Torah, and there's repeated in Torah to take care of, protect, love strangers, protect strangers, and that all of that is in Torah. To make sure you're welcoming the stranger and helping the stranger and protecting the stranger. Whereas in some instances, killing the stranger for his wife was kind of the theme. So, I mean, you have to look at the cultures and the different ways of looking at it. But when you look at Torah and the Bible as a whole, you're looking at, in this scenario, again, you'd want the love and protection of the stranger to rule out of these other things, I would think. That's just a general thought there, but it has to do with what we're talking about because different cultures have different ways of dealing with things.
Sure.
So.
But Abimelech may have had a learning experience.
Yeah.
If it's the same, some people say it's the same Abimelech, some people say it's different.
Right.
But
yeah.
If it was the same Abimelech, or if it was a son with the same name, doesn't matter. There was an understanding from way back when Abraham came that way before, and that's inherent in their culture. Hey, they're not stupid people. They probably said, hey, we've heard this before.
Right.
And
again, Isaac's response is because I thought I might lose my life on account of her. So that tells me that he knew the cultural response of these people might kill me for my wife.
And also it's telling us that both men, Isaac and Abimelech, they know what has happened before.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is another example of why it's important to know your history. Okay, which takes us back to an earlier discussion. Yes, Michael.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been away for a moment, but I don't know if this is apropos to the discussion at the moment. But if I could say, if I'm wrong, you just tell me, and I apologize. One of the reasons that I see that Israel is a threat to its neighbors is because the countries around Israel follow, they're not, they follow an they're old, I hate to say old school, they follow certain ways that they believe in, they don't want to change. Israel is a modern country, and being so close, they feel it's a threat to their culture, their history, in certain ways, because the women and men are are equal in the army, in driving, in education, and everything. Women have the same status as a man in Israel, but not in their neighboring countries. And they don't want to for those people to see what's going on in Israel. So they see it, I believe, as a threat.
Well, it would change their culture, seeing it from, yes, I think it's a good point you're making, Michael. Any other comments about what we have been reading?
Yeah,
Yes, Suzanne.
Yeah, just one quick one. Because Isaac said that Rebecca was his sister, that indicates to me that within the family, all these stories are being passed along. There must have been some discussion about what Abraham said when he and Sarah went to Egypt, and and also here too, to Gerar, because Abraham said the same thing to Abimelech back then when they went there. So it just tells me that there's communication within the family as to, their story, their history.
Okay. Any other discussion about this? Yes, Chris. Chris, you're muted again.
Sorry.
Okay.
I just was reading again in here where Abimelech said that, "What have you done to us? Why did you do this? One of our guys would have laid with her, and you would have caused us so much problems here." So it seems to me like it was a selfish motive too, that Isaac did that, considering himself and not the consequences of the entire community or the entire group of people that he was dealing with. And that's something that, sometimes we do. We think about ourselves and seeing the consequences that an action can take in our community, in our countries, in our villages.
I'm just going to throw something out as another consideration. Do you think Abimelech may have also known about the covenant being extended to Isaac? Is that why we read in a paragraph just above this that it starts out by Isaac going to eventually meet with Abimelech?
Right.
And then there's an interlude, there's a conversation with God.
Right.
Is Abimelech also in on this in some way, that he understands that there's a mission here?
I believe he did. I believe he did know that Isaac was special or chosen And that's what the damage that he could have done would have been greater, because God would have to act to protect him.
Well, he could have accidentally gone against not Isaac, but against God.
Exactly.
So you start to wonder if there was, if Abimelech did understand something about that.
I think so.
Don't know. So let's go on and see what happens. As if somebody wants to read verse 12.
I can do that.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Isaac showed in the land and repeat 100-fold the same year. The Lord blessed him, and the man grew richer and richer until he was very wealthy. He acquired flocks and herds and a large household, so that the Philistines envied him. And the Philistines stopped up the wells which his father's servants had dug in the days of his father Abraham, filling them with earth. And Abimelech said to Isaac, "Go away from us, for you have become far too big for us."
Okay, let's stop at that point. And any comments about what we just read?
The same thing is going on today.
Okay, but also what about Abraham?
Oh, definitely.
What is there a similarity or a difference between Isaac and Abraham?
I hate to keep raising my hand.
Go ahead, it's okay. I don't care, it's okay.
Well, I feel this at the time, Abraham did not dwell in that land. They separated themselves from the Philistines in the past. And so they were not immediately involved with them, because when Sarah died, he had to buy the property. And so they were not part of anything that they had to do with the Philistines. Is that correct?
The Hittites.
The Hittites, okay.
That's right. He purchases a parcel of land from them.
Right. So I think that was different. They did not dwell together. They were, well, maybe they did. I don't know. Now I got myself trapped here.
Before I interject anything, I see some hands up. Pastor Bruce and then Suzanne.
I really see this, like maybe what was just mentioned, as very parallel even to today, because it really illuminates human nature.
Sure.
It is. I mean, I don't want to, again, I'm like Michael, I don't want to interject anything particularly political into this, except that this is, the Philistines here, instead of digging their own wells, decided to destroy the wells of someone else. And what is not happening in our world today, and even in our own country? Sorry, that's it for my political schemes.
No, there are similarities.
I mean, seriously, humanity, it really is, it's illustrating that human nature doesn't change. Rather stop up somebody else's something instead of learning how to do something yourself is a huge thing. It's huge. And,
yeah,
you know, I think that Israel, I mean, it's a paradigm of a lot of Jewish history here. I mean,
yes,
there's all of a sudden there's a threat because of something being bigger, and then somebody does this and somebody does that, and you've got the wars happening, and it's just, it seems to be envy instead of emulating somebody's success and being thankful for their success and saying, oh, we can do that too. It's envy, it's jealousy, it's everything else. So it's just, human nature hasn't changed much, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, good points. Suzanne, I think you had your hand up too. Suzanne, you're muted.
Sorry, thought I had unmuted me.
Okay.
It occurs to me that Abraham always seemed to be the beneficiary of gifts of many, many things, and that was how he accumulated his wealth. But here it says that Isaac actually he worked the land. He and as a result of his efforts, then he was rewarded 100-fold. So it shows, I mean, in my mind, it seems like Isaac was more of a worker than Abraham was.
Okay. He's working the land. Okay, but one of the things that we have to be careful of when we look at people, think about different types of jobs. And, each one is valuable, not one in particular. In this case, if we look at what Abraham was able to do during his lifetime, he was a doer.
Yeah.
Okay. But Isaac is a doer in a different way.
Yeah, exactly.
So what is that? What is the difference between the two? Does Abraham spend a lot of time wherever he goes?
No, he wandered.
He's nomadic.
Yeah.
That's right. And but here Isaac is doing what?
Putting down.
Settling down. Yeah.
Settling down and putting down roots. So now we have the situation of we've discussed in the concept of envy. Okay.
I wanted to just respond quickly to.
I'm sorry, Michael.
Pastor Bruce, when you were talking about human nature, and it's my position that human nature is built into every one of us. It's part of us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we may see human nature in different ways, but within each one of us, it's a permanent part of our own thinking. And when one thing leads to another, I call these circumstances, unforeseen circumstances.
Okay. Good point. Well, let's go on a little bit and see what what happens. Abimelech is now saying, "You're too big for us. You got to go away." Okay, it's a threat. Okay, it's almost like it's almost like if an industry becomes too big for its britches in the United States. Okay, and what does the government have to do? It invokes antitrust laws, okay, that are on the books, and the major corporation, if it's felt that it has formed a monopoly, it's broken up. We don't tell them go somewhere else. We say it's time to break up. You're too big for your britches, and so it's another stretch on the same thing. But so let's see what Isaac does. Does he defy Abimelech and say, no, I put down roots here. I now belong here and I'm going to fight for it? Or what other approach does he take? If somebody would read verse 17. Yes, David.
Okay, and Isaac departed thence, and he encamped in the valley of Gerar, and he dwelt there. And Isaac digged again the wells of water which they had digged in the days of Abraham his father, for the Philistines had stopped them after the death of Abraham. And he called their names after the names by which his father had called them. And Isaac's servants digged in the valley and found there a well of living water. And the herdsmen of Gerar strove with Isaac's herdmen, saying, "The water is ours." And he called the name of the well Esek, because they contended with him. And they digged another well, and they strove for that also. And he called the name of it Sitnah. And he removed from thence and digged yet another well, and for that they strove not. And he called the name of it Rehoboth. And he said, "For now the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land."
Well, no pun intended by starting the sentence that way. What is the role of the wells? Why is this so important?
Mayim. Water.
Good point. You want to elaborate on that, David?
Well, you're digging a well because the well has the most precious thing in it, which is the water. And I think that's the key. That's the short answer and the only answer, I think, to your question.
Okay, wise guy. Well, yeah, the water is very essential, not just for the purpose of drinking, but also for agricultural purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, that's our literal interpretation. But what are some of the symbolic meanings that could be attributed to wells and water?
Protection.
Explain.
Well, if you have water, you have ways to defend your land, to provide for the people that is under your care, to trade for other things like that might be necessary. I noticed when I visit Israel, there's so much water welded in walls and caves and things like that. And I understood that when they closed those wells, or they were underground, so that they were a source for the people, life for the people. But there was also the outside of the city didn't have the water, so they will die. So it was a protection for them.
Okay.
Water can also represent death as well as life.
Life, definitely life, yeah.
Okay. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Well, if you can drown under certain circumstances surrounding water. You also, if you overwater a plant, the plant could die. And so there's nothing really is that clear cut. But usually we don't think of water that way, but it's possible. We think of it water as something that's essential to life. It produces and it sustains life.
Mm-hmm.
Normally.
Very important. Okay, that's okay. What is water ever used in another way when we talk about rain? Yes, Suzanne.
It's also like a way for cleansing. When with the flood, Noah's flood, for example, I mean, that kind of cleansed the earth for a fresh start.
I agree. Any comments about ritual bathing?
Yeah, in Judaism, it's very important to cleanse before prayers. Every time you're going to make a prayer, and this is very noticeable on Passover, in the Orthodox religion, the washing of the hands is very, it's often throughout the whole service. It's you wash your hands many times.
What other stories in the Bible center around water?
Well, the story of Passover.
Mm-hmm. Well, it goes back to Moses.
The Red Sea.
Oh yeah, when he that's right.
Not just the Red Sea. What does how does
He
Moses
was taken from the water.
Yes.
When he was a child, when he was an infant.
So water, as was pointed out, it can be cleansing, it can be birth. Today we still describe what happens just before labor.
Water breaks.
Water.
Yeah, we still use the same term. Okay. So any other comments about water and wells?
Reminds
Well,
us
if you
of Noah.
didn't have the wells, you couldn't find a wife.
A new beginning. A new beginning. Yes, David, you were saying something.
I was just going to say, thanks, Martin, that it reminds us of the days and the times of Noah.
Yes, yes. It's another. We can look at it both ways. It wasn't so good for most of the people, but it was a way of cleansing everything.
It also produces beer, good beer.
Good beer. You must have some water. That's right with it. So it is very critical. But what else is another word sometimes used in place of the comments about rain? What about dew? D-E-W. Has that been ever used spiritually?
The morning dew?
Morning dew, or the dew of heaven? What does that relate to? You know, back then, dew just, you wake up in the morning and there's water on the grass or water on the plants. Didn't seem to fall from the sky. Yes, Chris.
It's freshness, renewal, new opportunities, new mercies, new provision.
Yeah. It also is used in some cases as interchangeable with the Word of God. God's teachings is like the dew from heaven.
Like the dew in the morning.
So it has a spiritual connotation as well.
Absolutely, yes.
And the well, so wells are very, very important.
Right.
In multiple ways. We can discuss it. Yes, it sustains life. We must have water so we can live.
No, but it is true when you're saying that, because if you consider the well being the Word of God, it's so deep and so refreshing. It would outlast anything, and it will be there for you always.
Mm-hmm.
There's no lack of it, especially if it comes in a rain form, or even in a well, no going dry, obviously. But yeah, it's freshness and it's hope. Hope for as long as there's water, there is hope. As long as it's the Word of God, there is hope.
Okay. Yes, Don.
First of all, I apologize for coming in late. But in the generation after Abraham, if you had a well, then you didn't have to be a Bedouin. Otherwise, you migrated from oasis to oasis, where you could graze, where you could practice husbandry and graze your flocks. And you couldn't put down seed. You couldn't plant crops. So
Right.
without water, seeds are useless because you're not hanging around there long enough. But I did in the generation after Abraham. Now we have land. We have land ownership where you could dig a well and you could defend it. There's money. You can do exchanges without direct exchanges. It was kind of feudal, so if the family couldn't operate the land and take care of the animals, you could have servants. Feudal society. So it seems to me there's a huge transition from Abraham.
Yeah, that's correct. That's very correct.
And also these shut me up here because I've been, but these are stories, and they're not exactly history because it's sacred history, which is different. It can't be proved, but it has meaning because it's sacred and God is always present, except in the Song of Solomon. I think that's the one place in the Bible that God doesn't make an appearance. But they're all pedagogical. The stories are absolutely useless unless we can see ourselves in them and learn something.
Yeah.
And so that's what I always look for. What am I seeing here that Isaac is in Isaac's life?
Now, I alluded earlier to the double, and it's going to come up again. We haven't gotten there yet, but the double blessing for that is very critical. When we get back into the story of Jacob, it also comes in verse 13 when Isaac is growing richer and richer, okay, until he was very wealthy. You could just say the man grew richer until he was very wealthy. So what are two different ways of looking at wealth? Wendy, I think you're muted. And I couldn't hear what you were saying. So, David is coming to the rescue.
Wendy is coming to this microphone.
Okay.
Where she will be able to talk.
Okay.
And Wendy's valuable comment is coming right after these messages.
I'll just make the.
All right, I'm at David's microphone.
Okay.
It's not just wealth that makes you rich, but it's possession. For like just owning a well makes you rich because the water is so necessary for so much in your life. So I think that's the point you're trying to get to. All the wars we've had over water rights, water is very important. So if you've got a well, you're rich.
Yeah. Do we have a well?
Okay, so we've been speaking about physical wealth. What other ways can you become wealthy?
Well, property, I guess, just owning land.
That's physical. Property is physical.
Spiritually.
Spiritually, knowledge. Okay. So maybe that's another interpretation, that not only he became richer with physical wealth, but also richer in spiritual wealth.
Shakespeare talked about having lots of friends, and how Macbeth mourned the fact that he did not have any friends left at the end of his play.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, "I have lived long enough."
And that we're going to have a discussion about in the next couple of weeks, probably.
Yeah.
One comment, Marty, about water.
Yes, please.
A side comment, and that is that the Israeli scientists have done marvelous things converting seawater into drinking water. It's a side comment.
It's true. It's true. Irrigation, we're using a lot of the methods. Today, when we put down, we don't use sprinklers so much living here in the desert. We use a system that was developed by the Israelis.
Right.
Okay, we have irrigation systems that with tubes that run underground and carry the water directly to the plants. That was invented by the Israelis. That's how they were able to reclaim the land once again. So yes, so there are different ways we can view this discussion. Any further comments or discussions at this point? We have enough time to go into any discussion about the repeated efforts to build a well. Any comments about that? Why that's important? Whether it is for physical reasons or spiritual reasons, the digging of the well to obtain the water is very important. He was persistent. Okay, so persistence is not just a single attempt. Okay, he could have been totally discouraged after the first time, but he was persistent in providing this. So he was doing it not just for the present, but for the future. A farmer lives for the future. He doesn't live for the present. Okay,
Marty,
yes, Ruth Ann.
He's showing that he wants to live with his neighbors.
Very good.
He's not trying to, disrupt his neighbors' lives, even if they weren't in the right necessarily.
Okay. Now, does this remind you of an earlier story in any way? What happens in the discussion between Abraham and Lot? Chris, you're nodding your head, or Chris, you were nodding your head.
I know. Thank you. Well, that was basically, they wanted to separate peacefully. He says, if you choose the north, I'll go to the south. And if you want to go south, I'll go to the north. It didn't really matter to Abraham where was he going, but that they needed to find their own peace, separated from each other. Yeah.
So you can still be persistent, but you can also do it in a more, I'm going to use the term civilized manner,
yeah,
or peaceful manner.
Right.
Sure. So yeah, there's a similarity in the behavior. So maybe this is another example of Isaac having remembered what his father had done.
Yeah.
So let's go on. How much time do we have? Yeah, we still have some time. Any other comments about the wells? Okay, but there's a lot more that is written. You can find it online.
Yeah.
And because this comes up also Kabbalistically, I wish Steve was here or Mark, because they would be able to go on and with a dissertation on this subject as well. Any other comments or questions or discussion? Well, then let's go on. By the way, just as Rehoboth.
I like that name, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It is connected with something being ample or broad enough, a broad space. Okay. And today's Rehovot is not anywhere near where Rehoboth was back then. Okay, so just if you try to look it up on a map, you have to go to more ancient maps. Okay, so let's go on to verse 23. We're making progress today. Verse 23, if somebody would care to read.
I can read it.
Sure.
And he went up from there to Beersheba, and the Lord appeared to him that night and said, I'm your father Abraham's God. Don't be afraid, because I'm with you, and I'll bless you and multiply your seed on account of Abraham, my servant. And he built an altar there and invoked the name of the Lord, and he pitched his tent there, and Isaac's servants dug a well there. I have a question.
Sure.
Okay. So he's saying, I'm not doing it because you're a neat person. I'm doing it because on account of your father Abraham. So everything is born, because of Abraham, not because Isaac's done anything particular. At least that's my interpretation. He's not saying, you're great. You're great because you're his son, Abraham's son.
Okay, I'm gonna you opened a door. So let's hear from Chris, and also I believe Suzanne has her hand up. Don, did you have your hand up too?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. So Chris, then
Thank you.
and Suzanne.
Thank you. I would like to believe that when God sees you with grace and mercy, and He has made a promise to you, that definitely it will be kept. And it's good that I think He tells Isaac that he was doing this because of the promise that he made to Abraham. That in no mean at all says that Isaac is not worthy to me. It says that I will remember Abraham because that was my priority promise to. But when he said here, inasmuch as Abraham obeyed me and kept my charge, my commandments, my laws, and my teachings, I will do the same for you. So again, is that will, if you want to call it, part of what you receive as the inheritance of your family? I believe that's how I see it.
Okay, it's a good point. Suzanne.
Oh yeah, I'm just to expand or add to what Chris said. I take it as God is reaffirming his covenant with Abraham to Isaac to let him know that that covenant did not end when his father passed, but it was still ongoing.
Okay. Yes, very, very, that's an important comment. Because what does, in verse 22, we didn't comment about that. Okay. What does Isaac do? What is
another well?
He digs another well, and then and he calls that location Rehoboth. But what does he say?
We shall be fruitful.
No, it says, now at last the Lord has granted us ample space to increase in the land. He attributes his success to God.
Oh,
He
okay.
doesn't say, we did it, I did it. Okay? He attributes the success to God. Very similar to the behavior of Abraham, his father.
Great point, Marty.
Excuse me?
Great point.
Oh, no, but it's an important point because it's one of the things that we're supposed to do. Okay? It's not only honoring your heritage, your parents. Okay, it is honoring God. Okay, and he's not saying, well, my dad said I should do this. He's saying, thank God that I was able to accomplish this. And I think that that's an important consideration here. And so then God is going to appear to him and reminds him, yes, I'm the God of your father Abraham. Don't fear me. I am with you as well as with your father, and I will bless you, increase your offspring for the sake of your father. So I added a few words to that. So, and then what does he turn around and do? He builds an altar. Sounds familiar? He's doing what his dad used to do. In all the different places where Abraham benefited, he built an altar, and now Isaac is doing it. So he learned well in the eyes of God. So he is showing that he merits God's favor at this point. Okay, and now, if we go a little further, I'm just looking at the time. I think we're going to have to stop here. We will come back to this at this point next week. This is like the old serials in the movies. What will happen next week? You know, will Isaac remain successful? Will God continue to favor? Will Abimelech, what will Abimelech say? So it is, that's where we are right now. So we'll end at that point. I just had to put that in. Ruth Ann, did you have any announcements?
Well, I want to try something. Okay, if in preparation for Monday's congregation meeting. Okay. Does everybody see a poll?
Yes. Are you enjoying Torah study?
Okay. Can you just answer?
Okay.
Okay. Yay. Okay. It works.
Good. Good.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure it worked. After yesterday's fiasco, I have to go now and check the microphone over there on the camera. I hope it isn't malfunctioning.
Yeah.
But this is going to be a means of voting on Monday. Although thank everybody who's already voted because we already have our quorum in the voting box, the ballot box there. But that's the main thing, Monday's congregation meeting. And otherwise, next week, let's see, on the 25th, we have genealogy with Les. And then on the 27th, Lenny's going to give us a talk on labyrinths. And then
that'll be good.
Yeah, and then mark your calendars. September's very busy. We have sing-alongs with Mike Finkelstein, and then on the 3rd and the 10th, Rabbi Roman is going to start preparing us for the high holidays. Mm-hmm. So if anybody does not have their high holiday muxor, please, make sure you get it by the 10th. I'm going to try to make sure everybody has it by the 10th, because on the 10th, that's going to be his discussion is going to be on the Muxor, so everybody can be a little bit comfortable with it.
What time is that going to be? Do you know?
2 to 3:15.
I'm sorry?
2 o'clock. That's his time. He likes that time frame.
Okay.
So
Civilized time.
What was it you were saying about the labyrinth and something on Thursday, the 27th?
Lenny.
Lenny's going to talk about labyrinths.
When?
2 o'clock.
Oh, nuts.
Okay.
Well, you can always watch
has
it
that been
later.
announced before?
What?
Was that announced before?
Yeah.
I'm just hearing of it now because I made a doctor's
I
appointment.
didn't know that either.
Oh, well,
Yeah, I don't know where you were, how it got out, but I'm usually pretty good at marking things on my calendar.
well, let me put it this way. There's so much going on right now that I have to keep it on my calendar. I used to keep it all in my head. I can't keep it in my head anymore.
Yeah, but it didn't get on my calendar.
Now, speaking of calendars, we are marching through the month of Elul, right?
Yes.
Right.
And this is supposed to be a time of introspection. It is a time when we're supposed to remember our heritage, our ancestors, and families fall under that. It is a time to think of not only the good things that have befallen us, but also things where we have gone astray. It's not just during the period of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. This is, we're to begin this process during this time. And we're supposed to be grateful for what we have received. So what we have been reading today falls into this period as well. And I just wanted to make that comment. And yes, there are a lot of changes to what is going on and how we are overcoming the difficulties of our time. That is the important thing. It was mentioned before. It's not just accepting something bad and saying, I give up. It's something that you have to say, it's a learning experience, and where do I go from here? And that's the entire thought process that we go through during all of this time leading up to the high holidays. Okay, so I just wanted to I know the rabbi wasn't here, but I thought I'd throw that in just on his behalf. So I want to thank everyone again for another phenomenal week. And I'm going to sign off, and then you can.
Thank you, Marty.
Take care.